If you're anything like me, then you're very interested in building things. When you see things that have been built before you, you wonder, who built that? Well, in this video, we're going to look into one of South Africa's self-made property developers who has developed office parks in CBDs, estates in suburban areas, and some of the country's best regional malls. If there's anyone who has built success, then it's this guy, literally. Alright guys, before we jump in, if you enjoy the kind of videos in this channel, may you please like this video. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you have not subscribed yet, may you please do so by clicking on my face somewhere here. I've never come across any successful person without at least one major setback. I'm talking about the kind of setbacks that if their lives ended then they would go down the history books as failures. But these guys' setbacks are in a league of their own, and so are his comebacks. Sisa Ngebulana was born in 1966 in Mtata in the Eastern Cape. In 1973, his father was involved in a trucking accident in which he lost his life, leaving Sisa to be raised by his grandparents at the Tohana village in Mtata. Sisa's grandparents owned an everything store in the village, including a brick-making factory. This is where the young Sisa spent most of his time, either behind the counter or out in the field manufacturing bricks. It was during this time that he learned skills such as bricklaying, plastering, and also really building an intuition of what house could be built given a certain budget, skills that would come back to serve him later in life. Both his grandparents would leave a deep impression on him by emphasizing the importance of all the good stuff such as education, discipline, hard work, and personal responsibility. And fortunately for him, unlike most of us, he happened to be listening. Sisa went to school at Ndapane Junior Secondary School in his village, after which he matriculated from the St. John's College in Mtata. He had very average matric results and didn't care that much about academia. He had an aunt who was a doctor who also owned a couple of businesses in Butterworth. Together, they made plans that Sisa would take care of some of her businesses while he studied business part-time. Unfortunately, his grandmother didn't buy any of that. As a boy, he had become very argumentative, and as you might expect, his grandmother saw a lawyer in him. She then went on to apply for him to do law at university. On top of this, she had, over the past 5 years, saved up for his university tuition. Unfortunately, there was an issue. His grandparents were relatively well off, and so had to take care of many relatives and extended relatives, as is usually the case in black families. This meant that at any given point in time, there were about 12 to 15 people living in the same household. When it was time for Sisa to go to university, there were about 5 of them who had to go, and so his grandmother had only enough money to pay for each of them only for their first year. And after that, each of them had to fend for themselves to finish off their studies. Realizing how much his grandmother had sacrificed for him to have a better future, and how much his future now depended on him, he decided to work extremely hard while doing law at Forte University. For the first time, he did exceptionally well academically, earning only straight A's and a single B. This allowed him to continue his studies using a loan from Standard Bank. After graduating from Forte, Standard Bank offered him a job so that he could pay back his loan with them. Unfortunately, this clashed with his own idea of studying further towards his honors degree. Sisa was never a man to sacrifice his dreams. Instead, he had gotten a scholarship to do postgraduate LLB at what was then called the University of Natal. While at Natal, he was under immense pressure to pay back his student loan. And as we'll continue to see throughout this video, he tends to face his problems head on. What he did in this case, he decided to take board exams and became an estate agent and started selling homes in Scottsville, Pietermaritzburg, in order to pay for his student loan. However, his potential buyers would always be turned off by something in the house, either the paint, the roof, the tiles, the kitchen tops, and so on. In order to win these customers over, he would come with different samples of paint colors and tiles, and play on the customer's imagination of what the house could possibly look like. Eventually, these customers would buy. But problems never end in business. What happened now is that the builders he hired to do the renovation work would end up disappointing him. He decided to withdraw from his childhood experiences working for his grandfather and decided to do the renovation work himself. The silver lining to this was that he ended up making more money this way. It only took him 1 year to pay back the student loans and bought his first BMW, which cost him 32,000 rands at the time. After his time in Natal, he moved to Cape Town to do his articles at the law firm Jan S. de Villiers in Pinelands. While in Cape Town, he did courses with UCT to familiarize himself with financial management accounting. His articles job only paid him 600 rands and so couldn't even afford insurance for his BMW, which was now collecting dust in the basement. And so he decided to rent out trailers hooked a tow bar to his car, and started moving furniture in Cape Town. As the saying goes, start small while thinking big. It didn't take long for him to start buying trucks for his furniture removal business. This was between 1992 and 1994, and by the time he was done with his articles, he owned 9 trucks and decided to go after the furniture removal business full time. You know what they say? They say the darkest hour comes before dawn, but I guess the brightest hour also comes before dusk. Sisa moved to Johannesburg, and 6 months later, the wheels started coming off. He had a lot of his clients not paying him back their debts, and this quickly became a problem, taking a toll on his health. Within a short span of 6 months, he had 3 blackouts and 2 operations, first removing his piles and secondly his appendix. The diagnosis from the first blackout was that he had kidney stones, and the diagnosis from the second blackout was that his appendix was the problem, which was then removed. He was still recovering from this surgery when his third blackout happened. At this point, his aunt, who is also a doctor, told him that the problem was stress. Sisa was then forced to choose between his business and his health. To this day, he believes that it was a life or death decision. He chose his life. With the business gone, not only was he left with trucks, but he also owed the bank about 1.3 million rands. He decided he had to auction off the trucks and get a job in order to start paying back the loan. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to be that easy. He wanted to auction off the trucks so that he could get money so that he can start paying back the bank. But this also meant that without the trucks, the bank didn't have any surety that he could be able to pay back the loan. The banks needed surety. A persistent negotiator, he managed to convince the bank to agree. Unfortunately, he didn't make that much money from these auctions, getting at most 50% of what each truck had initially cost him. He then asked the bank to give him only 36 months to pay back the rest of the loan. He now needed to get a job and got 2 job offers, one from the bank ABSA and the other from the power utility Eskom. He chose the one from Eskom and was placed in the legal department there. Now, the other problem was that he was only earning 10,000 rands a month, and that was nowhere to being enough to repaying his debt in 36 months. He then turned to what we would now call his passion, property development. His plan was simple: buy land, build homes, and then sell them for a profit. And this is what he did. Within 6 months, he was making profit, which he then invested into more plots of land, building more houses, and then selling them for profit. Within 30 months, Sisa had repaid his loans. I think it's worth putting these numbers into perspective. It's the mid-90s. Here's a guy who owes the bank 1.3 million rands. He auctions off the trucks and makes 500,000 rands and now pays the bank 500,000 rands and is left with a loan of 800,000 rands. And now he's able to pay back the entire 800,000 rands in 30 months from a side hustle. I mean, even if we would say he saved the entire 10,000 rands salary, that would still make 300,000 rands in 30 months, which would still mean then he made 500,000 rands, which is 500,000 rands from a side hustle. Well, if for some reason you're not impressed by this, I have decided to find out how much 800,000 rands in 1995 is equivalent to in today's money. To do this, I have used the website inflationtool.com, assuming that you would at least trust this website. So 800,000 rands in 1995 is equivalent to 3.1 million rands in 2020. In an interview in 2017, this is what he had to say about that loan. I didn't declare bankruptcy and I didn't walk away. The consequences of this business were mine. If you default on a loan, you can carry on with your life, but you cannot get credit with the bank and you cannot be the director of a company. Many people choose that path. It wasn't going to be mine. There were too many things I wanted to achieve. I needed to do it right, deal with the challenges and get through them. Throwing in the towel would have prevented that. There will always be things outside of your control, but you need to own up to all the consequences of your actions, good or bad. While at Eskom, Sisa managed to complete his master's degree with the University of Johannesburg, while it was still called Rand Afrikaans University. He also credits this time with Eskom with teaching him things such as managing a large organization, industrial relations, corporate governance, and so on. But as you might expect, he didn't stop working on his very lucrative property business just because he had finished paying off the loan. He ended up developing an entire street at Kalami Estates. He then moved on to develop other suburban areas such as Dainfen, Pickenwood, and Bryanston. While all of this was happening, he was moving up the corporate ladder at Eskom and was now working for the Treasury. He had gotten so good at his job that a struggling coal mining company approached him to help them save their business. So Sisa came in and restructured the company according to Section 311 of the Companies Act and recapitalized the balance sheets. Unfortunately, it took only 8 months for the company to be in financial trouble again. Sisa came back and approached the banks for funding. The banks told him unless he had skin in the game, they wouldn't listen to him. Unless he worked for the company full-time, they were not going to listen to him. So he left Eskom and joined the company full-time and invested everything that he had into this company. 3 months after leaving Eskom, he realized that this company had more fundamental problems and could not be saved. I had to face the fact that I'd lost the gamble. The risk hadn't paid off. Holding on to the business would have just sunk us into even more debt. Admitting defeat was painful, real physical pain, and caused immense stress. But I've learned to recognize that stress and the toll it takes on the mind and body, and I think I handled it better. In times like this, there's no point looking back with regrets. I could have stayed employed. I was making good money developing clusters on the side. It was safe and comfortable, and now it was all gone. They decided to close the company and sold off all of the mining equipment. This was not enough though, leaving Sisa with 30 million rands in debt this time. Things were so bad that he couldn't even pay school fees for his 2 kids for a period of 6 months. Getting a job was not an option this time around. It would never be enough to pay 30 million rands debt. Unsurprisingly, he turned back to property. Fortunately, he had plots of land in Hyde Park which he then sold. He then started developing more clusters in Hyde Park, Dainfen and other upmarket areas. He gained momentum and pretty soon had shifted his focus from residential areas to buying CBD buildings when the corporates had left the CBD to more decentralized locations like Sandton. He would refurbish these buildings and get tenants moving in. Pretty soon, he was in the commercial property space. The coal mining business was a financial blow, but it was also a blessing in disguise. It forced me out of employment. If it hadn't, I might still be employed today, and I would have never achieved what I have through Billion Group and Rebosis. At this point, Sisa had paid back his debt and was very successful in his commercial property business. He kept on buying, building, refurbishing and getting more tenants. But the thing with Sisa is that he gets very driven and thrives off challenges. But his work right now was not challenging him anymore. It was time to level up. Alright guys, I'm really happy you're enjoying the ups and downs of Sisa's life, but I'm realizing that this video is getting way longer than I had initially expected. So I have decided to end this video here. I'll make a follow-up video to this one which will focus really on his conquest of developing some of the best shopping malls in the country, which is really the work that he's currently known for. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.